Hi everybody, my name's Brian Shee and I'm an instructional designer at University of Limerick in Ireland. And I'm here to talk to you today about creating alternative and inclusive learning pathways, but also ensuring then that you match that with an inclusive learning design to maximize efficiency. So there's many challenges in higher education. I'm sure we're all aware of them. This is a Micro-credentials conference after all. So things like evolving curricula, especially with the advent of ChatGPT and AI and all the other things that go with that. Staff shortages, financial issues, global problems like housing, accommodation, rent, all these kind of things. But one of the biggest problems and challenges in higher education, and it's something that's been around since formal education was introduced, and that's access and inclusion is very, very limited. Okay, so one way of sort of addressing that, the recognize of addressing access issues and inclusivity issues in higher education is creating new alternative and inclusive learning pathways, lifelong learning pathways. Now, they spoke about in the keynotes earlier today about the various challenges and barriers in promoting and developing lifelong learning opportunities. They talked about time and resources as being the two main ones, and also motivational as well. Material actually covers time and finances and these kind of things. There is a third barrier as well, and that's structural. Okay, so the actual options for lifelong learning opportunities and pathways, there's simply not enough that are there. So a possible solution for this, a potential solution that does address many of those issues are micro-credentials. And I won't go through the definition and all that. We've heard that around 10 times today already. But one thing I do want to draw your attention to is that one thing about micro-credentials is that it allows learners to take control. So take control of their own learning journeys. And I'm going to come back to that when I'm talking about the learn design framework that we've developed. So in terms of the importance of micro-credentials, obviously great for swift upskilling, addressing rapidly changing demands in the workforce with all these innovations that we're seeing in recent years, but also creating new learning pathways for empowering diverse sets of learners. So this then takes me to the Micro-Creds project. So the Micro-Creds project is a national initiative in Ireland, and Ireland is actually one of the first countries to have a national framework developed and that collective approach to micro-credentials. So it's in the pilot phase. Actually, the pilot phase just finished. It was a 5-year pilot phase that was led by the Irish Universities Association and the 7 leading universities in the Republic of Ireland. The pilot phase is now finished, and it's opening up to other education institutions in Ireland as well, like technological universities across the country. That's the website for Micro-Creds. It's microcreds.ie, and that's where you'll find every micro-credential that's available in Ireland presently. All the information about each micro-credential and how to access them and how to apply for them. All this is all on the microcreds.ie website. So the purpose of the Micro-Creds project was to mainstream micro-credentials and create new learning pathways. It's part of the Human Capital Initiative, which was a government program for promoting and developing upskilling opportunities for the employed, the underemployed, but also creating new inclusive learning pathways. And this is what micro-credentials is set out to do. It's all about really promoting lifelong learning and giving opportunities to people who may not have the opportunity to engage in lifelong learning before. So the University of Limerick is one of the founding members of the Micro-Creds project. I'm just going to talk to you what we're doing at the university. So this is a little timeline. So we've been offering short courses, which by the definition, and we follow the European definition of micro-credentials, we've been offering short courses for over a decade. So you can see here this timeline shows the increase in student numbers over the last 10 years. So the Micro-Creds project coming about in 2020, and you see those big spikes there. Now, this couldn't have happened without government interventions. We had a lot of government assistance with this in Ireland in terms of funding opportunities for learners. The Micro-Creds project also collectively, it works it has a bit of a huge brand around Micro-Creds, and there's a lot of promotion and marketing activities. So in terms of mainstreaming it now, we are getting there. As one of our colleagues mentioned in the keynote this morning that she was at a party and no one knew what a micro-cred was, or micro-credential was. I was at a wedding a couple of months ago in Ireland, and I met 5 people who had done micro-credentials. So it's getting there. Now, I still think we're still in the early adopters phase. We haven't moved on to mass adoption or innovators yet. Even though we're 5 years into it, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of like we have thousands of students in UL, for example, enrolling in micro-credentials. But that's only a drop in the ocean when you look at the amount of people that these upskilling opportunities are available to. So we've had over 150 micro-credentials in total at the University of Limerick. You can see all the information on it through that website there. We've around 100 active at the moment. Some of them just might have been specifically designed for maybe a certain industry or a certain cohort, whatever it is. We have 100 active at the moment across a range of different disciplines. We actually have a lot of them in health and medicine, especially in nursing. We have a medical school and at the university, and we have a local hospital as well. So a lot of them, and if you think about it in terms of upskilling and lifelong learning, like the areas of health and medicine is something you have to be constantly upskilling in. So we do have a lot in health and medicine. So that takes me then to the inclusive learning design. So it's all well and good like creating these inclusive learning pathways and more accessible learning pathways for diverse sets of learners and what you can offer them and these kind of things as well. But when we were setting out to design the micro-credentials, we made the decision that we wanted to make sure that learning design approach, it mirrored sort of the ethos of the microcreds project, which is inclusivity and accessibility. So we set out then to create engage with inclusive learning design practices for our micro-credentials offerings. And we have different as an instruction designer, I work with the various lecturers across the university when they're designing their micro-credentials, and they might have their own preferences for specific learning design approaches, whether it be ADDIE model, ABC, Carpe Diem learning design, whatever it is. But the underlying foundation for all of the micro-credentials that I work on will have universal design for learning, or UDL, applied to it as well. So this is a set of principles, inclusive learning design principles. And what universal design for learning does, it recognizes that like no two people learn the same. Okay, so everyone has their own preferences for like how they consume content, their own responsibilities, especially if you're looking at older learners, might be the first time return to education after a long break. They have all these family responsibilities, social responsibilities, work responsibilities, all these kind of things all lead into how people prefer to learn. It even comes down to things like how they prefer to consume content. So we take that all into consideration through the Universal Design for Learning framework. So I could talk all day about Universal Design for Learning, but I've only got 5 minutes left, so I'll lay it down very simply for you how you do it. Okay, so it's the 3 main pillars. So multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. What it simply means is you give people choice. Choice for how they communicate, choice for how they consume and engage with content, and then also choice for how they actually apply that learning and action that learning. Just a very quick example in terms of the action and expression. So assessment. So what we've done with a lot of our micro-credentials, we give people a choice. You can either write a report or you can record an audio, do a podcast. And just giving a person the choice, it actually relieves a lot of pressure for them and removes a lot of barriers and just it takes the pressure off them. So some people in their jobs, they might be more used to writing reports, so they can do their 10-page report, whatever it is. They might be more used to giving presentations. So you're allowing them to implement that through their learning. We also bring in a lot of work-based learning, so people bring projects from their job, solve a problem for their job or through their work via the content or via the assessment, whatever it is as well. I will say as well that we found the micro-learning approach, so that chunking of content for the online content, it actually works very well. So if you haven't heard of micro-learning, it means that no learning unit should take more than 7 minutes to complete, whether that's a pre-recorded video or a quiz or whatever it is. 7 minutes is the limit. There's a Stanford test that shows people tend to go off other directions if you go above the 7 minutes. So lots of different examples there. Mixed content as well. Just make sure you're not just relying on one person's preferences for consuming content. So in terms of videos, written content, activities. Another thing we found works very well is the peer learning and peer engagement. I've been at other conferences and I've talked about this, and I say that discussion forums work very well in our online environment, and people say they don't work for us. I just don't see it. Like people bring in their the discussion forums, allows them to engage with their peers, learn from their peers, help their peers, and it works very well with the different micro-credits we have at the University of Limerick. So, does this inclusive learning design, does it actually work? So my role as the instruction designer, it's not compulsory for lecturers to work with me. I'm an advisor. So if someone wants to work with me, then we'll go through the whole shebang. We'll storyboard it. We'll spend weeks preparing the content, all this kind of thing. But not everyone takes me up on that offer. And so we have looked at those micro-credentials that didn't use the inclusive learning design framework and those that did. And we've looked at the differences. So there's a sample of just 20. I would say out of the 150 micro-credentials, it's under a half have actually used the inclusive learning design approach. Now, I selected this 20 because they had a grade attached to it. A lot of the micro-credentials actually don't have a grade at the end of it, but these ones are part of a wider course excuse me, that they could potentially stack into, so the lecturer had to assign a grade. So these 20 micro-credentials, they had a grade attached. That's why these were picked. So they're across the different schools and university, and these are some of the results. So when I'm talking about completion rates here, I'm talking about the actual content that's up online, on the online, the VLE Brightspace, what we use. So without the inclusive learning design, 71% of the content was completed. With the inclusive learning design, 84%. Not a huge difference. Now again, with people that are part-time learners, they don't tend to complete all the content anyway. They have different levels of experience. They just pick and choose what they need. Not too much of a surprise there. But this was the big one. So the average time spent on the content. Now I should say that our micro-credentials at University of Limerick, they tend to be 6 weeks long, six ECTS credits, and 6 weeks long. So those that didn't use the inclusive learning design, we found that the learners are spending an average of 15 hours online on the online platform. Now, this doesn't include things like the live online sessions, which could be a couple of hours each week, or self-directed study, or working on your projects, whatever it is. This is actually on the actual online platform. But if they use the inclusive learning design, with that micro-learning approach where people could find things easy and keep going back to what they actually needed, they were spending double the amount of time. So 32 hours over the 6 weeks. Okay, so over 5 hours a week. And there was difference in the grade as well. So those who didn't use the inclusive learning design, the average grade was a B1, and with the inclusive learning design was an A2. So it was a whole letter grade difference there. Now, all our micro-credential learners tend to be high achievers and very dedicated and engaged as well. So they do tend to be high grades. Some learner feedback there. Just my favorite one is, great work, thank you. It was a great experience for me as I'm an old age student. This is someone to come back to education for the first time after 20 years, and we were able to give them a good experience. But that's why it's important to have that good inclusive learning design experience as well, because if you're removing barriers for lifelong learning, but you're giving them a bad online experience, you're just creating more barriers. You have to address that, or else just losing them forever. Okay, thank you.